Alexander Lancaster here at Two Wolf Studio with an artist, Martinez Hillard.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Yes, man.
Perfect.
Family man, artist, writer, community leader. I follow you, man, and I'm super excited that you're here. And man, there's so much to talk about. But how's the family?
Everybody's doing really well. Eloise is recovering from a cold right now. That's kind of the biggest thing on our plates, but still trying to make every day fun. I think winter's been a bit of an inhibitor for our family dynamic. We don't get to go outside and do some of the family activities that we like to do through the winter, so definitely looking forward to warmer days.
Yeah, man. I mean, the reason why I ask is on your Facebook, I mean, you're always showing all about your family, and that's just a great representation of who you are.
Yeah.
You know, I think when you look at how well you take care of your family, and then you're part of the community as a leader. You're a leader in this community, and so it makes me wonder. You know, like, what do you hope that your children, when they grow up, they say about your works in this as a community volunteer as you are?
I think for me, it's like so much less about when Nikki and I, we have a 4-year-old daughter, Eloise, and I think it's so much less about what she says about my work, but that she can use that as a roadmap for her own life and for the choices that she makes.
Absolutely.
And for the passions that she develops, that she knows that her mother and father were both people who were passionate about community and passionate about engagement and involvement and being inclusive and having a heart to serve others. That's really what the goal is for me. As far as whatever my legacy represents, I hope that my daughter can take our example and run even further with it. So. Yeah,
man, I totally can relate to that. I have a 19-year-old that's in New York chasing his dreams, being an actor, and
wow.
it's to me, it's also like, you know, if you do it, you know, you could inspire your kids to do it and let them believe that it can be done. But you have such a big influence with with your movement, the way that you have a visual for what Topeka can become, and tell us a little bit about some of the works you do with that.
Well, I'd say I've been really fortunate to work with a lot of nonprofits over the last decade here in town, starting with the YWA Center for Safety and Empowerment in YWA of Northeast Kansas. I'm a member of the advocacy committee for the YWA of Northeast Kansas, so it's nice to have an even more integral role in some of the public-facing endeavors and actions that they've taken over the last few years. I gotten a chance to work with Arts Connect, Sarah Fazell, and the board over there on a few different projects, and that's been a lot of fun as well. I think really it's a matter of just finding roles where I can fit in relatively seamlessly, or take some of the experiences that I've had in the past when it comes to either community organizing or fundraising or working with nonprofits, taking some of that experience and applying it wherever it fits best, I suppose. I lived in Lawrence for about 5 years, from 2007 to 2012, and as a musician, I was fortunate to be able to work with different nonprofits there as well, the Sexual Trauma and Abuse Care Center, and working with Family Promise of Lawrence, an interfaith nonprofit that specifically works with like homeless families, single mothers with small children, and things of that nature. So I don't know, it's been a real blessing to marry the things that I'm passionate about on an individual, like somewhat selfish level, and take that and turn that back into the community. That's really important to me.
What's inspired you to do that? What's been your inspiration to get started doing that kind of work?
Well, I'd say a big part of it was attending church, like with my parents when I was younger. I'm not a churchgoer these days, but I think
But it was a lesson for love.
Absolutely, a lesson for love and a lesson for grace and for acts of service.
Hmm.
Altruism, as lofty and ideal as that might be, I think it's really important that you put yourself in the practice of giving your time and giving your heart and giving your talents to things that you really believe in. And there's, in the world that we live in today, we're really fortunate that there's so many different ways that you can do that, to where anybody, really just about anybody can apply themselves to that type of work, that type of community work, as long as they apply themselves. Sometimes it's about taking the first step, and I think, it's I would say that, a lot of that work in terms of engaging with the community, there's nothing perfect about it or necessarily easy, and it can be emotionally taxing, but it's just really important. It's worth it. So.
Have you always felt this way? Have you always felt like you was a helper of mankind?
No, absolutely not. And I think for a long time I understood, what having a purpose-filled life meant and what finding purpose was about. But I think it took me a long time to recognize where the things that I did sort of fit into that, or where I could apply myself in a way that worked best for me. I think that's also really important too. That from a burnout standpoint, or just from like a comfort level standpoint, not everybody is poised to do every part of that work, but I think everybody has a role in it, and it's just a matter of finding what works for you. So.
Yeah. So is it hard to find the spot to fit into, to start doing something positive in your community?
I would say not. I would say it's very much about casting a vision for what a community could be, and articulating that to the people around you, trying to manifest it. Just putting that energy into the atmosphere is the biggest part of it, and that definitely takes a whole community to do that. I moved back to Topeka in 2012 from Lawrence. I'd actually ran out of money, and this was pretty low on resources at that point. So I was really fortunate that my wife Nikki, this was before we were married, I was able to move in with her and a family friend of ours and get back on my feet. And I kind of came back, with my tail between my legs, just really unsure of a lot of things. But I was just really grateful for their support in that moment. I feel like it gave me an opportunity to really transition back into this community successfully, and to look around and again start casting the vision that I had when I was younger, when I had lived here in previous years. So, and that was also really important to me. I would even say, like, as early as 2012, I noticed a big difference between Topeka in 2007 versus 5 years later.
Sure.
It definitely seemed like there was a different energy beginning to encompass the city and to rise from the city. And I don't know. I feel like more than anything, people might perceive me as a visible part of whatever our community is now, but I feel like I'm just sitting back and watching, just like everybody else, like just waiting for what's going to happen next, what exciting thing is going to happen. So
it really doesn't take much for one person to get involved and be a part of a big movement and have just a little bit to do, as long as you put a couple hours into it, even a month.
Right.
The amazing things that can happen when people pull together.
Yeah.
Were you playing your music? Were you doing your art in Lawrence before you moved back to Topeka? Or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So was this coming off of like things wasn't really working out for your music, and then you moved back to Topeka?
Things weren't working out for my life.
Yeah. Well, if it's not working out for your life, it's not going to work out for anything else.
No, it's not. And the thing is I just to be candid, I remember having lots of conversations with many of my musician friends, not just my bandmates at the time, to where, and this sort of speaks to the imbalance sometimes that having a passion for art and music can create in your life, is where you're looking at everything everything
Yeah.
that's happening in your life outside of music as like that's getting in the way
Right.
of your journey into a career in music. And then you realize after a while that actually it's the other way around. Like sometimes like your pursuits or like your blind pursuit for art and music can get in the way of having a stable, healthy life and having stable and healthy relationships. I think I had just reached a breaking point where I didn't know what I had left to give to the pursuit of a career, not necessarily to music. I mean, I had told myself a very long time ago that music is something that will just always be a part of my life, and as long as I enjoy writing and recording and performing live, it's something that I'm planning on doing for as long as I can. So it wasn't that so much, it was just making sure that my ambitions were properly distributed across my life.
So when you came back and you started, it sounds like you started thinking more about community stuff. Did that also help your art career too, your art side of things?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
by being involved and meeting new people that had a positive and mutual vision.
I mean, I think it helped overall. I think it just helped my quality of life, which in turn helps the way that I function and create my art ultimately. So, but it was almost like that was secondary. I just wanted to make sure that I could have healthy conversations with people that I cared about again, and that I could have healthy interactions, with not only other artists, but just people in the community, coworkers or family, friends. I mean, I just felt like I had a lot of catching up to do with a lot of people. Like I owed a lot of people that, and that was really what my priority was. So that's really been a lot of what the last 7 years has been, is just catching up.
And it seems like you're doing a good job of it. You have a lot of things coming up too in the future. I mean, your name's been mentioned in the paper several times for the work that you've been doing with the police department and the city council. Some of the different things that you've been a part of to help create a great town here in Topeka. And I think that's the reason why over the last 7 years we've seen a big difference, is because there's people like you that's putting forth those efforts. Even though you say sometimes it feels like I'm watching, but you just show up whenever you need to, and that is the important part, is that you're still able to do your art and stuff. So all the vision of what we can have here in Topeka. Another question I wanted to ask for anybody who is maybe not living the right way of life that they want to live, and saying, hey, this is the time that I need to change, but is Topeka the place that I want to start focusing on my art, my music? Is this the place I want to start? What do you have to say about that?
I'm glad that you asked that question, because I know that I have lots of musician and artist friends who feel a stronger sense of community in different environments and different places, and I commend them for pursuing that, and I definitely understand what that's like. I've been fortunate that I've been able to play in projects, and I did a lot of traveling when I was younger, because my family moved around a lot, but then also as a traveling musician, I've been able to go back to a lot of the places that I used to live. I mean, to the exact cities and neighborhoods, and just see things from a different perspective. And that's really the biggest thing that I got out of touring, is that it gives you an opportunity to have perspective, and as much as
different cities and stuff.
Seeing different cities, seeing different communities, talking to those artists who live in those communities, building those relationships, and kind of getting a sense of what their challenges are, what their triumphs are. And I think you quickly realize over time that a lot of places are just as fertile as the place that you're at, need just as much nurturing, need just as many hands to create that space for art and culture to exist, And I think for me, it's about having a certain disposition. It's like I appreciate a challenge, and I think that's what Topeka creates and fosters for a lot of artists is that even though there are some significant challenges in terms of literal space making, and in terms of everyone feeling connected, being connected, it's something where some really magical things are happening because it's all gathering together in this moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it almost feels like it's a community on the cusp of a lot of great things. I also I know that a lot of people like to draw comparisons. Like for us, that's going to be Lawrence, it's going to be Kansas City. In some cases, that's going to be Salina, with everything that's happening on Santa Fe and Stifle Theater and things like that. But I think what's really important is that we create moments and experiences that are true for this community.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's really cool about Two Wolves, and I think that's what's really cool about some things happening in the Noto spaces as well, is that there are lots of people like you and other people who gather community to create these moments that feel true to us and feel true to what's happening in this community. And that's and I would say for anybody that's interested in creating art and music and culture in Topeka, now's a great time to tap into something that's just very unique and exclusive, that's only happening here, that's not necessarily happening anywhere else, and that's really important. So
I totally agree, and good answer, man. Yeah.
I think about it a lot. I think about it a lot because I think that's and that's something that we get told, or that I've been told a lot as a musician, is that you forsake a lot of opportunities by not being in certain cities, by not being in a Chicago or an Atlanta or a New York or San Francisco. But with that comes so many more hours that you're having to spend, whether that's commuting or working a job, or working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. I mean, I think that there are some pros and cons to anywhere that you're at, and so much of it just has to do with the attitude that you bring to your work and to your communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never, over the last couple of years, I've not seen so many artists blow up as I've seen lately. Yeah. Topeka artists, there's some amazing artists here, and that's something to be pretty proud of. And I don't think that it's that's all the artists that we need. I think Topeka's been welcoming, just bringing as much art as possible, and let's do this. So I hope that's words of encouragement for the youth and for whoever is out there, wondering, hey, I see this kind of stuff happening. How can I be a part of it? And, of course, the answer is get out and meet somebody, shake some hands, and do something, especially in the community, and you'll find your way for sure.
Absolutely. It's like you have to make it. Again, it's just like we talked about. You have to visualize it, and you have to manifest it. From your mind to your lips, and bring it out into the world, and
take some actions. Yeah,
as you're speaking into existence, you start moving on it and finding people that are like-minded. It really it takes a lot of that effort, but it's really worth it.
It is totally worth it. I mean, the main thing you got to get going first is to get it started. I was talking with Dan Brennan, and it's like how many people what can one person do?
Yeah.
One person can get it started. That's basically what one person can do. Sure, you're going to need some help from other directions, but you got to get started. If you get it started, people get behind it. People don't get behind a ball that's not rolling, but that's a famous saying. Once the ball's rolling, people get behind it. So,
people get excited,
just as whatever you want to do with your art or your community, just get started and see where it goes, right?
Absolutely. I think it's cool too, being from the Midwest primarily, and working in the Midwest as an artist. It's like you learn a certain level. You have to operate at a certain level of determination at all times. You have to have a certain level of grit that you bring. In some ways, you do have to be audacious in the vision that you create for yourself and for the artists around you.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's been really encouraging to me as a musician that's traveled all up and down the Midwest, is that you meet all these great people in communities that are very much like ours, who are driven by the same goals and by the same purposes, and want to establish community as well. So I just feel so fortunate that that I've been able to build and facilitate community in other
Yeah.
places in the Midwest. Just because it's just like that. That's sometimes it's what you need is to remember that, like, we're not this isolated incident.
Exactly.
It's like
Yeah.
a blip on the map. There's lots of great things happening.
And and the word community sometimes thinks, well, they're talking about this circle. Well, we're not talking about community this circle. We're talking about this community as this city, or as this region, or as this, the whole thing, like you said, So, yeah, that's super important.
Just perspective. Perspective for anybody out there, but even for myself, I have to remind myself that every single day.
Yeah.
that I feel I'm really lucky to be a part of something that's way bigger than me. So.
I agree, and I'm with you on that. You're getting ready to do a big speech at the Epic Center coming up. When is it?
It's going to be Thursday, March 28th. I want to say that's 6:30.
Yep.
6 o'clock, 6:30. It's a free all ages event.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So that's the People's Speaker Art Series that's happening at Epicenter in East Lawrence. Dave Lowenstein was nice enough to extend an invitation, but I know some members of Black Lawrence, another literary, poetry, art collective based in Lawrence. They all invited me out to come and be a part of that speaker series, and I mean, really. Just like we're doing right now, I think for me the most important thing about any speaking engagement that I have is that I'm creating space for a conversation. It's not so much about I'm here to talk about myself or I mean there's a little bit of that.
That's what artists do best is create conversations. You paint a
Right.
painting so that people talk about the conversation.
Right.
You paint an animal that's endangered so that people talk about the conversation and help save it.
Yeah.
Totally an artist doings, man.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, right on, dude.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to that, and just any time that I'm granted space to speak a little bit, I just want to express endless gratitude for the opportunity, for the moment, and then also for anybody that comes to engage with it and take something away from it or bring something to it. In most cases, it's starting a conversation is really the most important thing to me.
So your band is Ebony Tusk.
Yeah.
And so what's in store? What's coming up with you guys on that?
Well, we've been working on an album with our friend George Valier for the last 3+ years. He used to have a studio on 6th and McVicker, across the street from that Quick Shop, Rundown Studios, and he's closed that, but we've been tracking in East Lawrence as well as at the Lawrence Public Library, just trying to wrap up some details on that. And
cool.
It's been a long time coming. We have some surprises in store. Working with a lot of great visual artists, that I'm really privileged to know. Justin Bergen out of Madison, Wisconsin, painted our album cover. That'll be forthcoming, and then working with Austin Glasgow out of Kansas City on some animated pieces, and working with Alicia Ruskin of Snap Photography in Lawrence on some additional content. So, right now I think we're in a stage where we're kind of doing some of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
To accompany the music. So I'll be looking forward to getting it done and having it out soon.
Yeah, but no predicted dates on that.
I got one, but I can't yet.
Yeah.
I don't want to jinx it.
Okay, but coming soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's a label that we've been talking with, based in Kansas City for quite a while as well.
Cool.
And I appreciate their long-term support up to this point, and at no point have they given us any indication that they don't want to put it out. So that's a really good feeling. As we get older, Ebony Tusks has been around in some form or fashion since 2010.
Right.
As Dan Geese and I get older, we have made sure to make space for one another to be able to prioritize the things that we care about in our lives and our partners.
You meant experience, not older, right?
Yeah, it's just age. I'm not putting anything on. It's just, it's just that your priorities shift.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, and so for us, it's been important that for the survival and for the success of Ebony Tusks that we make sure to create space for one another to be able to live our lives. We
Sure.
all live in different cities and have different fields of employment, and so we want to make sure that we're having healthy interactions with our personal lives, so that when we come and do what we do in Ebony Tusks, that it still feels healthy and fun and not a strain. So.
Yeah. So any upcoming events that we could see you at in Topeka?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I'm sure we'll have one more concert before the end of the year, and
No hosting or anything like that coming up?
You
just never know, huh?
Yeah, you just kind of never know. Events come and go, and I've been really fortunate to be invited to lots of different tables, and
Awesome, yeah.
I think right now, the biggest thing, to be completely honest with you, is wrapping the Ebony album and continuing to write. Like, we've already, back in December, as we approached the end of the album that we're about to put out, just started writing some newer material. And so that's kind of a mode that I'm in. I feel like I've had a lot of experiences over the last couple of years that I'm really just trying to ingest properly and digest correctly, and
Sure.
trying to find healthy ways to express it. So whether that's through speaking or having conversations or in the art, I'm just trying to figure out some different ways to manifest it again. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm sure there'll be plenty more to come here in town. I just a lot of it too is I can't wait to dive in head first to what's happening in town.
Yeah, totally.
But I also want to make sure that when I come back, I'm coming back on point. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, so that's really where my head's been, just writing and creating and sculpting and getting ready to become a part of this great conversation happening.
Well, awesome, man. Keep that act sharp and keep doing what you're doing, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for having this conversation, man. I appreciate you so much and all the work you've been doing. And like I said, the music too, big fan. Literally a big fan of your work with the community, and I appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of people do. So
thank you.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.